All right, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining the September 2020 VMware TAM customer webinar. This webinar is organized by the VMware TAM organization with the intent of providing our TAM customers the opportunity to hear great content, interact directly with great speakers that are delivering it. So please make use of the Q&A feature to ask any questions. And if your question doesn't get addressed today, be sure and reach out to your TAM and ask them to follow up. Before we get into today's content, just a couple of basic announcements. The first one is that our next TAM customer webinar, as you see on your screen, will be on October 15th. And we'll be getting some useful information on virtualizing your business critical applications on the VMware Hybrid Cloud with confidence. And so, looking at the set of guidelines that are common across your business critical apps, your databases and such, and how to best run those in a virtualized environment. I wanted to remind you that the schedule builder is open for VMworld, and as a TAM customer, be sure that you get registered for TAM Customer Day, which is running the week after VMworld. If you have any questions about that, be sure and reach out to your TAM. As I mentioned earlier, we want you to benefit from these sessions by interacting with the speaker. So if you have any questions during today's webinar, please use the Q&A feature of Zoom, and we'll address those during the webinar. And lastly, this webinar is being recorded, and your TAM can make the recording link available to you. And then after a few months, we'll make the recording publicly available on the VMware TAM Services YouTube channel. All right, so that brings us to today's speakers and topic. So first of all, I want to introduce Abhijit Timble. He's a senior technical lead, IT, and Abhijit is leveraging a great program in VMware called Take 3, which after you've been with VMware for 5 years, you can explore another role within the company for a short time. And so, he's currently on a Take 3 assignment, and so we're going to hear from him today. And then lastly, Martijn Smit is foremost a proud Dutchman that enjoys stroopwafels, and on the side, he's a senior technical marketing manager at VMware. He shared his knowledge via many blog articles and has recently released a book called the vRealize Network Insight Cookbook. So I'm sure that he's got a lot of great content lined up for us today. So Martijn, I'll turn it over to you to share with us either about stroopwafels or vRealize Network Insight, your choice.
Awesome, Andy, thank you very much. You kind of want to make me just want to talk about stroopwafels like for the next hour and a half, but maybe let's
right.
Let's skip that part. All right, let's get started with this session. So thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for joining the session and talking about vRealize Network Insight, or Network Insight, as I like to call it, because it kind of does exactly what the name says it does. So that's one of the least surprising things. So that's good. I do want to get a quick poll of you of the audience on seeing how far you've come with vRNI. Have you already seen a demo? Have you maybe attended a previous presentation, or maybe not at all? Anything like that, so that we can adjust the content a little bit around your responses. It's kind of cool. It's almost exactly 50-50. Almost exactly. All right. So the majority is saying no demo, no demo before. So I'm just going to stick to my original plan and start with an introduction and then move on. So let me end this poll. There we go. So that brings us to the agenda of today. So I'm going to be introducing vRNI a little bit. What is it? What does it do? What does it solve? How does it look? How does it look inside your network? What do we support? Those type of things. Give you a quick demo of the basic features within vRNI. And then I'm going to hand it over to Abhijit, and he's going to talk about something new that we've been doing for the last 3.5 months, because that's how old vRNI 5.3 is. And that's something called network assurance and verification, where we're kind of redefining how network management and monitoring is being done. But I'll leave the, I won't cut off his grass there and leave him with that topic. After that's done, I'll move on to VMware SD-WAN by vCloud, as SD-WAN is a pretty hot topic these days. And vRNI is a perfect companion when it comes to monitoring the SD-WAN and also the end-to-end network. Then we'll have a little bit of a different topic around application discovery, which is a pretty big deal also, because the application is the thing that matters, right? I mean, if something were to go down, or where the actual business revenue is generated, that's from the application. I mean, it's fun that it's running on an ESXi host or a firewall or a switch, but those don't really matter when it comes to the business value of your environment. So the application is focused there. And vRNI has a heavy focus on those applications, and application discovery is one of the ways that you can get the application landscape under control and troubleshoot and monitoring those apps there. And then we'll have some time to do Q&A also. All right, let's get started with. Okay, thank you very much. Let's get started with what is vRealize Network Insight. Well, vRealize Network Insight is the holistic monitoring troubleshooting tool for the virtual cloud network. And if you've not heard about the virtual cloud network before, that's pretty much the NSX family, whether that be NSX Data Center, NSX Cloud, NSX SD-WAN, so the entire virtual network, but also everything that runs beneath that virtual cloud network. So virtual networks have to run on something. It has to run on some hardware here and there. vRNI ties those two worlds together and then goes from the physical network to the virtual network, but also all the workloads and the applications that live in those two different worlds. It ties everything together, meaning that you can see what is hosted on a specific physical switch or a physical server. You can also see how the network topology is connected between the virtual and the physical world, or even the cloud world. Just have a broad visibility of the entire network instead of having point solutions needed in order to manage all of these different components manually. So that's the big picture. There we go. So what we do is we tie everything together. So whether that be traditional IT with physical servers. So if you have physical database, physical Active Directory, or whatever, then the virtualized servers, so all of the VM workloads that run on those ESXi hosts or those vSphere hosts. Private clouds when it comes to integrating with virtual networking, NSX, vSAN. I'd say the entire VMware Cloud Foundation, whether it be a hybrid or a public cloud that you might want to attach to that private cloud. That entire environment is growing like pretty much like crazy, because it's so easy to get started with one of these new environments. You just spin up a new cloud account, or you just spin up a new private cloud, which is also pretty easy these days, or you go to a VCPP partner and you take an SDDC from them. So you just rent an SDDC. So it's very easy, and we see a lot of sprawl when it comes to networking and security objects when it comes to a traditional or a current enterprise environment. And vRealize Network Insight ties that all together, so you do have an end-to-end visibility between that traditional physical server towards that VM, towards that public cloud that you might also be using. So making everything visible, that's sort of our motto. So how we do that is we've got all of these different components. So we've got the SD-WAN on the left. We got physical networking, switches, routers, load balancers, firewalls, all of those things. Then we got the virtual domain, the VMware Cloud Foundation, the SDDC, NSX, vSphere, those things. Then we also got deep visibility into Kubernetes, meaning that we can see the traffic flows, we can see the networking and security configuration of those container workloads, exactly the same way as we can see the VM workloads. So it doesn't really matter what you're running, whether that be a mix of VMs and containers, or whether that's just be a container environment, it will show up exactly the same way in vRNI. And then we also bridge out to the multi-cloud using VMware Cloud and AWS, or I should actually say VMware Cloud, because VMware Cloud is all over supported, whether that be on VMware Cloud on AWS or VMware Cloud on Dell, or an Oracle or an Azure. Those components are the same, so vRealize Network Insight can read those out. Or if you want to go native AWS or native Azure, those workloads, those cloud workloads are also included into the what we call the database of vRealize Network Insight, where you then can do all kinds of cool stuff around. So I already mentioned that we're heavy on the applications, meaning that we start at the application and then correlate everything down. So the application is king. That's why we also have application discovery, curation, and troubleshooting on those apps. And I'll show you a couple of the examples on why the application is king in the demo. But we have that application, then we correlate all the networking and security components to it, meaning that the physical switch where this VM might be running on is directly connected to that app. All of the security policies that are applicable to that application or the workloads of that application are attached to that app. All of the changes when it comes to firewall rule changes or routing changes or just regular feature changes all bubbles up towards that application. So when you're looking at an application dashboard within vRNI, you've got everything beneath there when it comes to the network and security parts here, but also the virtual workloads events. So you'll also see the vMotions coming and going in that dashboard. There's a heavy focus also on network performance, so application latency and the throughput of that application is important. So whenever there's a spike in latency, and you might not be networking focused, but you probably know that networking latency is almost equivalent to the end user experience, because that's the amount of time that you're waiting for something. When that spikes, vRNI will be able to tell that, because it will generate baselines, all of these metrics, and then whenever something goes up or goes down, it's able to alert you on that fact, and then show you where that latency is actually going down or up. So that focus is also there. So the performance, and whenever something goes wrong, you should be able to see that with the application dashboard. And again, I'll show you some of that in the demo. So just a little bit more information on how we pull all of that information into vRNI. So we got all of these different components: the cloud, the workloads, the VMs, the containers, the NSX, the physical network, all of that. And then we take the network flows, which vRNI uses heavily. So you will always see some type of network traffic information on any page of vRNI. So flows are very important. And then we take a lot of metrics from both featureware, the physical networking devices, so the switchboard throughputs, the cloud instances, so looking at throughput or packet loss or just plain errors from the hybrid cloud, the public cloud instances, all of the events that happen all over this environment. So whenever something happens on a physical switch that might impact an application, it is shown on that application dashboard. Then there's a lot of data that we get via telemetry streaming. So streaming from the network devices towards vRNI. We have a lot of configuration coming in from those physical and virtual networks, meaning that we can build up the network configuration as is, but also how it was last week, using that configuration that we get. And then there's also a lot of metadata attached to the VMs, to the containers. We can even reach out to a CMDB in order to pull down application information around those apps and make it a little bit more rich. And there's also an integration into vRealize operations, making the events that vRNI gathers, making those available inside vRealize operations. And there's some other cool stuff coming in VMworld around that integration specifically. But there's a lot of data here. That's what I'm getting at. And vRNI does a pretty good job at correlating everything. And if it's not correlated, if you're just looking for one metric, one very specific error rate or packet loss or something like that, you can use the search engine in order to uncover any and all of this information. If you're familiar with Elasticsearch, Google pretty much, that search engine is embedded inside vRealize Network Insight, and you can request any type of information from it. That's one of the most powerful things about vRNI, because from each and any one of those searches, you can actually either pin that to a pinboard, that's what we call a dashboard, or you can set an alert based on that search. And I'll show you a little bit more in the demo about that, how that looks. Just quickly, because I know that TAM customers are typically more technical, I want to show how it actually looks, how we make it happen. So the architecture is set up in 2 layers. We've got the platform VMs, and that can either be a single platform VM or a multiple ones, and then forming a cluster. That's just the level of skill that you need in order to support the amount of network flows and the amount of VMs that are in the environment. That's also where you connect. That's the UI, that's the API, that's where the alerts will come from if you want to get a notification from those. Beneath those platforms, we have the second layer, which is the collector VMs. And those collector VMs do exactly as they say. They collect the information from the data sources that we call, that's beneath that. So every single data source that you enter into vRNI, you select a collector in order to assign that collector to collect that data from that data source. So if you add a vCenter or an SH manager or a physical switch, you just select one of these collector VMs, and then it'll start collecting from there. One of the things that I want to highlight is that the collector VM only needs unidirectional communication towards the platform VM. So that arrow that you hear, that's just one way. So the platform VM does not need to be able to communicate with the collector VM, which is good, because then you can get a massive file that you put in between the collectors and the platform VMs, because this is typically your management zone, your management network where all these data sources live, your vCenter, the physical switches. So you want to be able to secure that environment. So that is there. And then we also got some integrations into our VMware Cloud for upgrades and support. So there's a pretty cool function inside all of these appliances called the support tunnel, which means that it will open up a HTTPS tunnel towards the VMware Cloud, and then our support engineers can piggyback off that connection and then troubleshoot without doing a Zoom or a WebEx or any type of remote session, which is kind of cool. Yep. So the note about data collection, that's pretty broad. I mean, it lists a lot of protocols there. But basically what to remember is that we use the most efficient way to collect the data that we need, meaning that if it has an API, we'll use that API over HTTPS. If it does not, like a physical switch, we will use SSH and SNMP in order to pull out the data, the configuration and the metrics that we need. And we do have a list of all of these requirements in the documentation also. We also have a pretty big ecosystem. So there's a lot of support that we need. So a lot of integrations that we need in order to be able to support all of that data coming in. So when you're adding a physical switch, for example, you will be able to select the actual model and the family number of that switch, meaning that vRNI will know how to interpret the information coming from that switch. So all of these integrations are there. We do have a official hardware compatibility list. However, we've pretty much got the top the top 10 networking security vendors covered using these integrations, and every single release, and vRNI is on a quarterly, so every 3 months there's a new version. Every single release will have a different and added support for something else. So we are on a very heavy cadence, very fast cadence. So if you do have something that's not on the ACL, just request that via your TAM, and then we'll probably be able to do that within a couple months. That's just experience talking here. All right, enough slides for now. Now let me see if I sacrificed enough to the demo gods. You go away. Let's see if this still works. It should.
Hey, Martijn, while that's coming up, there is a question about when will vRNI be integrated with VCF? Are you able to talk about that?
Yes. So it is officially integrated with VCF as according to it's on the list that they certify. They put it in the VVDs, the VMware validated designs, and it is there. You also get the license, I think, even. Honestly, I'm not that much of a license guy, so I would have to double check that one. But it is there. What's not there is that the vRealize Lifecycle Manager does not deploy it automatically when you deploy the VCF environment. That's something that they're working on currently. I'm kind of expecting that to be somewhere this year, what's left of this year. But unfortunately, that's a little bit out of my hands or out of our hands because that's the LCM team. That's but we can come back on. We can take that question and
sure,
get some more pressure on them.
Thank you very much.
All right. So welcome to vRNI. When you log in first into vRNI, you're welcomed with like the search engine that I was talking about. So you can type in anything here like VMs, and then you will be able to search for VMware VMs or AWS EC2 VMs or Azure VMs. So anything that you type in here, where's this keep it coming up? Type in here, we'll be able to you'll be able to find that. You can also use these shortcuts in order to jump somewhere. So the network map will is something that Abhijit will be showing heavily. You can jump into the NSX environments or the SD-WAN environments. But just to give you an idea of what vRNI in its more core does, the core foundation of vRNI is the security planner. And if I open this up, it goes through all of the traffic flows that it has collected in this environment and shows you that in a pretty graphical way. So this is the security planner where I could have modified the scope and said, I just want to see this vCenter or this network, but this is just everything inside this environment. And it's by default, it's grouped by networks. So whether that be VLANs or overlay networks, NSX networks, and you'll be able to see the communication between the multiple networks that we have. You can also highlight the internet and then see which network is talking to the internet. But you can also play around with these groups. So by default, it'll be the network grouping, but you can also by application, by vSphere cluster, even per VM, per network port. All of that is in here. Even the cloud instances, where it makes sense. So AWS VPCs or Azure VNets. You can click either of these ones and then it'll group itself by application communication. So this is pretty useful when it comes to application dependency mapping, when you're looking at an application and need to know what it is talking to. And also how much is it talking to. And then you can figure out what types of requirements does this application have in order if I would to migrate it somewhere, for example. So application migration is a pretty big use case that's kind of booming right now with VMware Cloud and AWS, where customers are using this pretty much application dependency mapping instead of the security planner to figure out which applications do they need to group together and which migration waves are there, will they be building. Before I get off topic, let me show you a couple of things. So if you zoom in into one of these slices, whether that be an application or a network or a VM, you get this this window where you can see the services that are hosted inside this group. So the listening services, whether that be in a web server or anything else. The external services that it's accessing from outside this application. So in this case, you can see a lot of NTP connections here. You can drill down all the way into the raw network flows and then get an understanding of the source destination and also the network throughput that it's using, that it's giving. And then the recommended firewalls where I actually wanted to go to is where the security planner, the name security planner basically comes from these recommended firewalls that you can come up with. So you can plan out security for your applications, for your VM, if you want to do micro segmentation or application segmentation, or maybe just network segmentation. Based on the network flows that flow through the network, vRNI will generate recommended firewall rules for you. So in this case, we've got the source destination, the services. I was focusing on the Locust application. So you can see Locust is going to be everywhere. And you can see that Locust is talking to this migration wave 2 over HTTP. You can even zoom in and see if there's existing rules in place that allow or deny this traffic. But the most interesting part is that you can export these rules. So you can export them as CSV and then just get an Excel sheet for these rules, or you can export them as XML and get a NSX API compatible format. And we actually have a couple of scripts that take this export and then import that directly into NSX. So just to make it a little bit easier or a lot easier to implement microsegmentation or whatever segmentation you want to do. Because if I go back and I group it by VLAN, you will have network segmentation instead of microsegmentation. What else is good? Yeah, let me pause there. So that's kind of where vRNI got its infamous, I would say. That's the very first feature that we had, and then we started building up on top of that. I want to show you one of these application dashboards that I was talking about. Let me get MOAD. So this is the list of all the applications that are in the system, and I'll show you the application discovery, the Discover tab during the application discovery part. But let me show you the application dashboard, and then we'll move on to the network assurance and verification and the network map stuff. All right, so I'm now focused on an application, and I can see the application topology. So this is a pretty simple app with just 2 VMs. You can see that it's hosted on vCenter. Both of them are. It's just 2 VMs. You can see the communication going between these 2 tiers. You can also see that the web is talking to the internet, and that they're both talking to some shared virtual services also. We also have a pretty good overview of how is the traffic behaving for this application. this is actually a new application. So right now it's saying that there's no changes. However, if you come back tomorrow, which we want, you'll see the difference compared to yesterday. So if there's a spike in traffic, you will be able to see that right here, right away. We have the amount of flows and then the amount of problems that those flows might have. And let me show you what that means, like what that looks like. I mean, the flows itself have a sort of a category. So we have unprotected flows, which means that the flows that are right now highlighted, those are not protected by NSX. So this is your to-do list for microsegmentation. If you're doing microsegmentation, we also have the degraded flows, and I don't think there are going to be degraded flows here. No, but the degraded flows are the network traffic that is not adhering to its baseline. So remember when I talked about the latency, and that's the end user experience, and that vRNI creates a baseline for that latency. And when that baseline is violated, so if it goes up, if it goes down, then those network flows are generated, classified as a degraded flow. So you can see if there's any problems with latency, with performance of this application right on this topology map. We have all of these VMs right here, and these are kind of good. So we've got one configuration change, meaning that we've got VM changes. Very simply, what has happened on this VM, so the workload itself, and you can see right now it's just added or changed a tag. So a VM tag has been added to this VM. It goes also into upgrades. So if you upgrade the CPUs or the RAMs, those types of changes are also tracked. You can see the firewall rule that are applicable to these VMs. So you can see that in this case, we've had the firewall rule any is changed, which reflects on this VM. You can even drill down into the NSX manager that has that change. And then I'm going to move back to the slides for this one, but there's a lot of other things here, like the metrics. You can see the network usage per VM. All of that is available on this dashboard. But any problems, any drastic traffic changes, any problems with the network flows, the degradation will be highlighted here, like so at the top of the page, just for easy accessing. All right, let's take it back. All right, so let's switch to network assurance and verification. I'm actually going to stop sharing and then let Abhijit take the slides, and also look at the Q&A while we do that. Where's the bug? There's the box. Let's see, I do have a couple of interesting questions, which I do want to adjust. So while you're setting up, Abhijit, I'll just read out a couple of these. Sure,
Martin, yeah.
Yeah, Joan asked whether we have plans to enable streaming telemetry out of vRNI, which is also kind of top of mind, because that is something that we're working on. We do need to define how that's going to be. Like Kafka is already used internally, so that would be the easiest choice. But we do need to define that. In the meantime, the APIs that vRNI has allows you to extract anything that you want. So you can do searches, you can extract flows, you can extract metrics. So the customers that do want to stream anything from vRNI into another system currently do that via APIs. And if you do have some more information around what you want to do, and maybe you want to talk about how that's best done, please reach out to your TAM so that they can connect us, because I'm quite interested in those conversations. Process for the further processing of alarms. I am missing the real-time alarms, which can be sent to any third-party system via REST API. Yeah. vRealize Operations has webhooks. Yes. So right now, outgoing alerts from vRNI is either email or SNMP. We do have also some other customers that are using the API again in order to extract those events and then translate them into either SMS calls, SMS text messages, or something else. Slack messages is also a use case. We are currently defining that in a better way. We're actually looking at VBA as well, so stay tuned for that. So that's flow sources from Cisco HCI or other systems can be added. Yes, they can. So vRealize Network Insight is agnostic when it comes to where the net flow or the S flow, to get technical, are coming from. So you can point HCI to it. You can point your MikroTik router to it. I even have my home lab sending flows to my vRNI. So yes, that's perfectly possible. And I think we'll get back with on you with the VVD for vRNI. Let me check back with that where that it's specifically located, which version, and then we can share that later. Last one, regarding application traffic latency, what metrics in NSX environment are you taking into consideration to report change in application traffic latency? I'm not sure if I'm interpreting that question correctly, John, but correct me if I'm wrong. NSX itself reports the round trip time latency for the flows going through NSX, meaning that the flows in there are already reporting the end-to-end latency. We take that number and show that inside vRNI. Those baselines are build up based on the numbers that we get from those latencies numbers inside those flows, and then whenever those numbers change, then those baselines are violated. I'm not sure if I'm answering that correctly, but you can type another question if that doesn't do it. All right, let's move on. The Q&A is empty. Take it away.
Hey, thanks, Martijn. So hi everyone. So today I will be covering the network assurance and verification feature for vRealize Network Insight, which is a pretty cool feature, and I'll be covering the demo as well. So let's look at the current challenges. So in today's world, we see that the current challenges we see is around getting visibility into complex networks and the hybrid environments that we have, which includes backbone connectivity to data centers and public and the private clouds, as well as connectivity between the public cloud vendors and the backbone as well. So how about having a network mapping solution which can help plot the complete network for us? So assurance and verification is another way of looking at network monitoring and troubleshooting. So because of the growing and complex network systems that are extending from on-prem to cloud to branch, you typically want to have multi-point solutions to manage and troubleshoot those networks. And we need to have a new ways on actually doing that. So we need to look at this mathematical methods from the companies that we have been doing it from ages in testing their complex systems for the failure and notifying on issues at the right time to avoid larger outages. So these mathematical methods were adopted into vRealize Network Insight for the network and security components within your network. So that means we can now monitor the networks with intents-based solution. And this can be used for predictive analysis. So what is an intent? Basically, an intent is a desired property of your network, and intents enables prediction of network behavior in advance. So if you know the state of the network, and if you know the state of the network for last week, then you know the state of the network for the next week. So let me move to the next slide. So the network assurance and verification is built on top of the mathematical model of that entire network. So vRNI builds that model internally and uses that model to facilitate a couple of use cases. For example, network-wide visualization. So within vRNI, you now get an entire network map of your network, how devices are connected, what is the topology, what is the path between two networks, the hops it takes to reach the destination, and the blocked paths. So within network map, you have the operational components also, where you can look at individual devices or see what is going on within the network, any intense violation, any best practice violation, all of that will be available on that network map. And as we have the intent verification that applies on the entire network, there are a bunch of these intents which come with system as default. So we look at loop detection, duplication, then duplicate IP addresses, then compliances to sticks and PCI checks, industry best practices, and reachability intents. And then we also have the user-defined intents, where you can define your own intents based on reachability or segmentation. Inbuilt templates like, say, example, internet web application should not talk to a financial DB, and it should raise an event if firewall rules don't have such configuration in place. So just to recap, so vRealize network insight, network assurance and verification capabilities make sure that you can think at the high level, define business intents, define compliance requirements for stick or PCI, and you can translate those intents using our out-of-the-box templates with the best practices like MTU mismatch, reachability. You can also define your own user-defined intents using reachability and segmentation template, where you can say that the finance users should reach ERP servers, or the guest user on a Wi-Fi should never be able to reach the production data center. So then vRNI will translate that high-level intents into the map of the network and then ensure that network adheres to that intent. And if not, then the intent engine will raise an event which will be visible in the network map, or you can raise a notification using email or SMS. You can also use vRNI's inbuilt APIs to fetch the notifications and push to other systems like Slack or ServiceNow ticket. So these are another use cases where we can see that machine A should not be able to reach to service B. This is one of the intent thing. Or my critical applications should be accessible to all remote sites across multiple paths. This is another use case. Or another use case would be like cloud deployments should be isolated from the internet, except through the on-prem DMZ. So these are some of the use cases, and we will showcase this as part of the demo as well. So let's get into the demo. Okay, so this is the main product page. So as you can see, like you'll see a new option that is the network map and intents. So one way is to access through by clicking on this button, or you can always use the search engine where you can type in the network map. So let's click on the network map. So once we are in the network map UI, you see an end-to-end interactive topology map of your network, including physical and virtual devices separated by regions and sites. So as you can see here, this is an end-to-end interactive topology map. So under the network topology map, you will be able to zoom in. So if you actually zoom in, or you can even zoom out. And you can even select any of the groups here. So it will expand, and you can show you, like here in this case, it's showing the New York data center. And you have the primary DMZ nodes. You can click on the individual switches, and it will show you the details of the specific switch. So same way you can move to the other components as well. You can just zoom out as well here. And you also have this other additional options where you can, the legend is basically to, it will showcase like what labels it belongs to, and events will directly show the events on the specific devices as well. And let's look at the summary page. So the summary section. So in the summary section, you will see all the events, devices and VLANs configured. So like you can see how many critical events that we have within your network. So if I click on the critical events, it will pop up all the critical events which are in open state. Yeah. So this shows all the events which are in open state. And same way, you can also see the list of switches, routers as well. So let's click on switches. And you can get all the list of switches here as well. Same way, you get the other components like the routers, firewalls, load balancers, their health status, and other entities as well. And under network topology, you also have the option, let me zoom a bit. Yeah. Okay. So under network topology, you also have the event section. Yeah, so this shows you all the events, open events specific to the network gears, and you can easily expand each of this to get more details about it. Like let's click on link M2 mismatch. This would show you all the details specific to the M2 mismatch error. So you can see like the switch PRDC FW2 with having port Ethernet 7 as M2 as 1500, while the switch 2, which is connected on port to Ethernet 2 as a M2 as 9214. So this is a mismatch. So if I click on Ethernet 7, it directly takes me to that device on the map. So you can see the port as well. And if I click on the switch 2, it also shows me the other side of it. If you just zoom in, you can see the complete. So basically helps to troubleshoot end-to-end thing. So same way you have other events as well, which you can go through and identify the issue inside the network map. So same way we have another option as the entities. So under entities helps us to actually search through all the devices within the network map, or you can even search, let's search for a backbone device, like maybe this is one of the backbone network switch in New York. And if I say enter, it shows me the details of the backbone device. So this is the device name. It shows me the device type. It's an L3 switch. And it also shows me the total interfaces and their state as well. So if it is, whether the Ethernet devices, Ethernet ports are on or off. If I can even expand it to get more details about the switch port, the operational status and all details. And I can move back to this one. And the third option is the path section, where this allows you to search between, you can search the paths between two devices, the source and the destination. So let me find. And the destination I'll give us. Okay. And you have these advanced options as well, where you can give, and also you can add an additional hop in case you want to find the complete path. If you want to see like what path it takes when you add an additional hop as well. So I'm not going to select anything here. So I'll just click on show paths. Okay, so it's going to show me all the possible paths it takes for the source PNFI to reach to the destination device. Yeah, so as you can see here, it is showing total 4 paths, and 2 paths have been allowed and the rest 2 have been blocked. And if I click on say path 1, it actually shows me the detailed path it takes here in the map itself. And also here you can see the forward lookup path it takes, the number of hops it takes. I can also easily expand this to get more granular details like the source MAC address, the destination MAC address, the port protocol it uses. Same, I can go till the end to find out the out NIC and all those details you can get. So same way you can do it for path 2. You can also do it for path 3, which is a blocked one, where it can show you the paths which are blocked. And there are like 12 hops here. So this is pretty much on the network map. And so let's go to the next feature. So the next feature that has been added is the intents. Intents is a desired property of your network, and you will describe a business policy or the architectural goal. So you can go by clicking on the intents tab here. So once you click on the intents, observe the user-defined intents. So you can see that there are total 14 intents defined, out of which 4 are user-defined and 10 are system-defined. So these are like out-of-the-box intents. And it also shows the number of failing intents. So if I click on the user-defined intents, I can see like, I can get into the detail like, okay, here is, in this case, it's like web tier should not reach the DB tier. It shows me the type. It also shows how many events have been opened for this specific intent and the current status as well. So same way, if I click on system-defined intents, it shows me all the system intents. Like in this case, if I expand this, so this is a MTU mismatch intent. And it shows me like how many events have been opened specific to MTU mismatch and the state. So same way, if you want to see all the failing intents, I can just go here and I can easily search based on the type of intent. So like say, suppose we want to look or troubleshoot further into the MTU mismatch intent. I see 25 events. If I click on the events, it will show me all the 25 events specific to this intent. Yeah, so you can see here, it shows the detail like switch 1, port 1, and all the MTU mismatch that it has found in the overall network. So as I mentioned, like system intents are out of the box and user defined are, we can create new intents. So we can define new intents using the define intent button here. So when you click on this, you can select one of those default templates. One is the device health, the network health, and the compliance tick. So say suppose we want to create a new user-defined intent on reachability. So you can just select reachability intent. You provide a name here like path from PAN F5 to of should be reachable. And here you define the source and the destination. And traffic direction you can select as bidirectional or forward one way. We'll select bidirectional in this case and just submit. So once you submit, so our intent has been created. And in case it doesn't, if the path is blocked or something, it will trigger an event and we'll see this status getting to field state. So that's pretty much from the network assurance and verification features. One is the network map and intents as we discussed.
Awesome.
So over to you, Martijn.
Yes, thanks, Abhijit. So that makes it a lot easier to make sure that some parts of your network are always running, right? I mean, if you just enable a couple of those reachability intents for critical services and someone changes something, then you know that right away. Plus, it's always good to have a working real-time visual diagram of your network. I mean, that's how often are visual diagrams, your network documentation, how often is that actually up to date, right? I mean, I've been there and it was never up to date. Anyway, okay, let's move on. I don't see any open Q&A, so let's move on to VMware Cloud VMware SD-WAN by VMware. So same as physical switches, same as vSphere and NSX, the information from the SD-WAN is pulled into vRNI, and then we can do a lot of things with that. For one, it provides the end-to-end picture, so you can see paths between an end user in a specific branch somewhere and the VM that they're trying to talk to. Or maybe even the public cloud instance that they're trying to talk to, and something is not working. Maybe the latency is degraded between that end user and the workload that they're trying to talk to. All of that is combined into one picture. So from the SD-WAN itself, we collect a bunch of metrics and configuration and flows. So configuration gets from the developer orchestrator, everything related to profiles, policies, routing, configuration gets pulled in. Then directly from the edges and the cloud gateways, we get network flows, just to see how the traffic is behaving inside that SD-WAN, and then all the metrics from those edges and those gateways that you can use in order to see whether something is congested or not. And then again, everything is combined into that dashboard within vRNI. So I'm not going to read all of this. I mean, it's a lot of use cases that we unlock with this specific feature. The slides will be available for you for reference. So if you're very interested in the SD-WAN part, you can use this as a reference. But in just a couple sentences, is that that end-to-end picture is very important, because when you're starting to even overlay your WAN network and having an SD-WAN, which means that you've got a virtual network and a physical network on top of each other, and then also have a lot of workloads on-prem, so in your data center, it becomes kind of a nightmare to troubleshoot and monitor. So you want to have everything in single product, single database, as it were. I'm gonna just show you how it looks instead of talking about it. Just one quick question from the Q&A, whether the network map function works with NSXV, and so the demo is always showing NSXT. And yeah, NSXT is the new thing that we kind of have to show from the NSView. But there are some NSXT-V functionality there. The intents itself do not work on NSXV, unfortunately, and that was just a prioritization thing. But you'll see the paths, you'll see the NSX routers come up in vRNI for sure. So for this one, I've just already selected the SD-WAN enterprise map, or the enterprise shortcut. You'll see a overview of your SD-WAN. So you'll be able to zoom into EMEA, for example, and see that there is a one in the Netherlands and one in France. You can see that there are actually 2 edges inside California. Hope they're still there. Oh, maybe it's too soon. So you have an overview of what's running where, and also what is experiencing some problems. So you can see that Detroit is having some issues here. You can see the amount of edges, the hubs, the gateways, like the entire makeup of your SD-WAN. What's more importantly is that we also have the insights into the applications that are running over this SD-WAN. So whether that be an application that you're hosting internally or something like YouTube, you'll be able to see what traffic goes over that and which edges are using this server. So you can zoom in on this application and then see that Detroit, Rotterdam, and San Jose are all using YouTube in this case. There's also a lot of events and other things available here, such as the metrics and availability on like how available is your SD-WAN. So if there's a service level agreement that you need to adhere to, you'll be able to measure and report on that using vRNI. This is just a real-time representation of that. You can see that the ALPS kind of has a problem because it's 0% available, but all of these others are pretty available. They're all at 100%, so that's all good. You'll be able to extract all of these values and make it a simple search to show you how available has your edges been in the last month, for example, and then use that as your service level report. There's a lot of traffic analytics going on here as well. So if you look at the traffic distribution, you can have a look at the applications that are inside this this SD-WAN and see who's using FaceTime in our demo environment. The edges, we even got a distribution path between the different types of traffic that could happen within SD-WAN, so edge to edge or edge to the cloud via the optimizing fellow cloud gateways. So all of this information can be used to optimize your SD-WAN to make sure that you've got the right business policies in place and the right traffic patterns flow through that to that SD-WAN. I want to dive a little bit deeper into one specific fellow cloud edge here. Come on, you can do it. Let's pick the data center. And we get to an SD-WAN Edge dashboard, which will have a couple of interesting things which VeloCloud itself, the VeloCloud orchestrator, does not have because, well, vRNI has that end-to-end picture. So for example, we can draw out a topology map for that SD-WAN Edge. So you can see how the network behind that VeloCloud Edge is constructed. You can see the different physical devices. You can see that there's a firewall, Palo Alto firewall in between. It goes all the way down to different VLANs, and then the connectivity that those VMs and those hosts have that are hosted by this VeloCloud Edge. So this is dynamically created from all of the data sources that are available within vRNI. So you don't have to do anything to get this except add the right data sources. Then when you're talking about performance in that SD-WAN, mostly because there's a lot of different combinations that the traffic can take. It can go directly from an edge to another edge. It can go from the edge to a data center or from the edge to a hub and then to another edge or via the cloud gateways. So there's a lot of combinations available there. Meaning that there can be problems on just specific small spots of your SD-WAN, but not everything. So if you're having trouble from, for example, from the Detroit branch towards the Washington hub here, there are a couple of paths that are showing some issues. So all the red here is all the paths with issues. We also see that there are a couple of healthy paths here. So you can, honestly, this has a little bit too much red. We've been playing around in the demo lab and we've kind of cranked up the degradation to a too high level. But for example, if you were having problems between the Detroit and the Rotterdam branch, and the connection between Detroit and Hillsborough would be okay. So this would be gray. And then the connection between Hillsborough and Rotterdam would be red. You would see which part of that traffic, which links would actually have those issues instead of troubleshooting the entire path. That's what I'm heading in for. We also have a lot of traffic analytics again between those SD-WAN edges. So if you've got this Washington data center, all the flows, all the traffic that goes from this branch, you can see how much of that traffic is direct to another edge, how much of that traffic is going via a hub towards another edge. So there's a hub model in here, but we can still use the direct edge-to-edge connectivity, but there is some traffic that goes via that hub. So this is an indicator that you would want to modify or optimize the business policies inside these SD-WAN in order to make sure that we're always talking direct, because that's kind of what we want to go for with SD-WAN. Then one small sliver is going via the cloud gateways, which my tooltip is not really showing. Okay, via gateway. All right. Again, a lot of metrics here. You can see the QE score, the quality of experience score. You can dive in all the way down to a per packet per second view. If I group these things together, you can have a lot more metrics in one view. So the total traffic, the packet count, the packet drops. We even have the highlight for any events that might be happening for this edge on the timeline that you're browsing through. So you have a lot of different metrics in the same page, and you can correlate these together. So if something were to happen, then you can either see that, oh, the packet drop is skipping, but is going up. But we can also see that the retransmissions or the latency, the network traffic latency, is going up. And then you can dive into the links, the internet links for this edge, and see what's going on with your ISP, for example. Yeah, let me jump. Considering the time, I'm going to go to my next topic. See if there's any questions also. You can also see that I've already hidden a couple of things because we're having so much fun that I've got too much content. Come on, here we go. Just before I take on this one, let me check the Q&A. Can I include customer-specific IDs in the dashboards, aka the tags from the vCenter or the cables? Jorg, yes. So anything that's related to either a VM within vCenter, so if you do have custom attributes or tags attached to those vCenter, you can filter on those. So using that search engine that we've been talking about, you can grab all of the VMs that have this specific tag, and then you can create an overview for one specific customer or one specific department. So you can create those pin boards specifically for those environments, and then have them pretty much just look at that pin board, and then they will see their own workloads instead of everything that vRNI has. Hope that answers that question. What is the difference and advantage between NSX Intelligence and vRNI? Only with perspective of NSX. That pause was way too long. Anyway, so maybe you're familiar with NSX Intelligence. I mean, Vikram, you are. NSX Intelligence itself, just for the folks that don't know it, looks also at network flows and then implements automatic microsegmentation implementation. It does that on NSX T2, 5 and above. It's also integrated into NSX, so you can set it up from the NSX manager and just deploy it from there. So what that does, it does almost exactly the same thing as the security planner that I showed you, only it's going to be on a per VM basis, where they take those flows, create recommended firewall rules, and then also have a button in order to implement them into that NSXT environment. So that button is not there within vRNI, so that's an added advantage for NSX Intelligence. But when you're looking at use cases, what vRNI can offer, that's the only thing that NSX Intelligence does. So the recommended firewall rules, the automatic protection of those VMs on that NSXT environment, and I keep saying that because it's not there for NSXV. So if you do have an NSXV environment, then NSX Intelligence does not do anything for you. So that's there, but when you're looking at other things that vRNI has, such as the NSX Manager dashboard, where you have an overview of the health of the NSX environment itself, you have a topology diagram of what managers have you deployed, what controllers are active, which tier 1, tier 2, tier 2, tier 0 routers are there. What is the configuration within NSX? How is the firewall posture being affected on the VMs? And then, of course, if you go out of your NSX domain, how is it connected to your physical data center? But if I stick to just NSX, so isolated NSX, no physical, I'd say that just the health checks of that vRNI does against the NSXT environment, or the NSX environment, I should say, is worth it. Plus, you get a lot of flow context that that NSX Intelligence does not have when it comes to, like, where is your traffic originating from, which end users are seeing it, those type of things. NSX Intelligence is going to catch up at some point, but right now, vRNI just looks at the entire NSX deployment instead of those traffic flows and that security profile. But again, it gets a lot more valuable when you include the rest of your network. So when you include your physical networking, maybe you've got an SD-WAN, or maybe you got some public cloud there, it becomes a whole lot more valuable when you do that, because then it starts to transcend multiple point solution tools such as NSX Intelligence or the NSX Manager for that case. So it just sits on top of NSX, your physical devices, and then ties everything together. That's, I keep repeating that, I know, but that's the main benefit of vRNI, because it sees all. That's a long answer for a short question. Hope that was okay. Edgar, what is the vRNI version that we're showing? We're actually showing you the vRNI.next version. So you'll see a little bit more on around VMworld. So especially the graphs that I was showing look a little bit different from the ones that you might have seen if you are using a vRNI. Anyway. Okay, let's talk about applications for the last 10 minutes or so, and then we've got some little bit more time for some questions. Okay, applications again are king, because that's the parts where the end users are complaining about, or whenever an application owner gets a complaint from an end user and they go to either the VI admin or the network admin, they say, hey, this application is slow, fix it. That's the main reason why vRNI is so focused on these applications. We want to be able to have that conversation with the application owners, talk the same language, and also see the same picture as those application owners see when you are troubleshooting these issues. Talk about the same data, talk about the same insights, even give them access to their application dashboard so they can see if the network is misbehaving or if it's the application itself. Hopefully sparing us a call. When I'm talking about us, I'm talking about the VI admins and the network admins. So sharing information and making sure that the silos are being broken down a little bit. In any case, even if you're talking the same language, that's a lot better than having to figure out what VMs are they talking about, which IP addresses, where are those VMs hosted, etc. So that's where application discovery comes in, because we need to get those applications into vRNI. You can do that manually. You can just go in and create an application, define the tiers, put in the physical IP addresses of physical database server, for example, the VM names, all of that. You can do that if you've got a summer intern or something that you can put behind a screen and type over your CMDB. That's cool, but it's not the most efficient way. You can also do it via the API, but you need to be able to do that. I mean, if you don't have the skills to run with the API or the scripts that we've made available to make that easier, that's also another boundary. So we've put application discovery directly into vRNI, and we can do based on a couple things. So here comes that customer tag back into play. So if you do have tags on your VMs or cloud workloads, vRNI is able to take those tags and those values and use them as application boundaries. We can also look at the naming convention of your workloads, your VMs. So if the application or the T name is inside of the VM name, we can pull that out. Just that specific part of the name, we can pull that out and then use that as the application name. Whether you have app-tier-vm01 or something like that, you can pull that app out as the application name, and you can pull that tier out as the tier name. Or you can work with positions. So if you don't have any dashes or any separators between those two, between the app and the tier or the VM name, you can look at the first 3 characters, for example, of a VM, which mostly gets used when you have automated your VM deployment, because then it becomes kind of a weird form of the VM. Anyway, I'm rambling. We can also pull down the application boundaries from CMDB, so ServiceNow CMDB. If you've got an up-to-date CMDB, the business applications that are in ServiceNow are attached to VMs. If you're doing that way, vRNI will be able to read out that and then save those applications into the system and then show them. The new way since a couple months, almost 6 months even. Okay, so about half a year ago, we released something called flow-based application discovery, and that's based on Magic and unicorns, basically. What it does, it looks at the network traffic that happens within your network. You can already see a pattern here. Just by looking at the network traffic that just flows through your network. I mean, applications are being used, people are going to your web servers, the web servers are connecting to your application servers or your database servers. So those flows are there. So what flow-based application discovery does is just learns those patterns and then breaks them down into application boundaries, names them according to what the VM names are. So it does a best effort guess on how the application would be named based on those VM names. And once it has those application boundaries, it even goes as far as going into the application boundary itself and then doing the same thing, but defining them up into tiers. So if you have one of these application boundaries where there are a couple of database servers, a couple of app and a couple of web servers, vRNI, that application discovery will be able to tell that those database servers are experiencing the same traffic. So they will probably be of the same type. They also have the same service ports running. So everyone will have the SQL port running, for example. So that will indicate that those are a part of the same tier. And then again, it goes into the VM names and looks at similarities. So if database is in those names, then it will call it the database tier. Basically, what you get is just a list of applications without having to do anything at all. I'm just going to show you that one. One thing to note is that it's always also takes into account shared services. So if you have Active Directory or DNS or NTP or any of that used by any of all the applications that are in the environment, it will classify it as a shared service also. I'm always a little bit underwhelmed by the demo itself, but it's just kind of cool to see. You'll see why I mean that, because the only thing that I have to do is I have to go to this application discovery, then flows, and if you haven't done it, you need to scope your discovery based on either every single VM or on a cluster or on a vCenter. And then it just goes and processes it and then shows you the result. I mean, yeah, you don't have to do anything else. For example, I've got a demo application here that consists out of 3 tiers. You can clearly see that it has a web tier, an application tier, and a database tier. vRNI is also very confident in that this app is complete, is there. And yeah, I deployed this app, so I know that it's there. And you can see the definition that we've got 2 application VMs in here. And then you can go ahead and save this to the system. You can rename it if you'd like. So I can make this the NSX Whale demo app. You can double check the tiers. You can add tiers if something is missing from here. But honestly, if the confidence is high, then the algorithm has not missed any network traffic at all. So the definition would most likely be 100%. In this case, it's a very straightforward app. So yes, this is kind of accurate. And all of these apps are coming just from that flow analytics that vRNI does. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's exactly why I said I kind of find the demo a little bit underwhelming because, well, ta-da, it's just here. Let me go back to because I want to close out with a couple of for your information. Let's see if I'm not missing any Q&A. Peter, the flow-based application discovery is GA currently in vRealize Network Insight Cloud, so the SaaS version. I was showing you the vRNI.next, but I've got it enabled as a beta. So there is a beta program for the on-prem version starting 5.3. So if you are interested in flow-based application discovery and you have a use case such as migration or just getting your CMDB under control, you can reach out to your TAM, which then can reach out to us in order to get you into that beta program. Honestly, the only reason why it's still beta and not GA in the on-prem version is because we don't have the bandwidth to properly go with push it towards QA. So the feature itself is kind of rock solid. Okay, I want to leave you with a couple things. One is VMworld. I'm sure your TAMs have already reminded you about the virtual event that's happening, the free virtual event. I want to highlight a couple of vRNI sessions if you're interested in learning more around vRNI on a very specific topic, or maybe relive the introduction because you thought that I didn't do a good job. That's also possible. You can visit any of or all of these sessions and get a little bit more information. I do have to say that all of these sessions are completely new. So all new content, everything is kind of exclusive to VMworld right now. So it's going to be really, really good. That's all I can say about that. So I'll leave you for that for reference. And Andy already mentioned this. Thank you for that. But if you want to get more deeper into vRNI and actually start using it and have a reference for it, I read the vRealize Network Insight Cookbook, and I don't like to talk about things that I do a lot, but all of this goes to charity. So all the proceeds of this book goes to charity. So if you do have anything that any interest in vRNI and you want to get deeper, these are, 280 pages of vRNI goodness on how to do things. And with that, I'm actually going to check the Q&A one last time. Oh, I did answer Peter's question. Ekar, what might be a good HOL ID to check out this product ourselves? All right, so the Hands-On Labs is a really good resource. It doesn't really matter which vRNI HOL you take, there's a lightning lab and there is a full-on introduction. But they spin up the same vRNI instance. So the lightning lab goes through vRNI a little bit quickly. And if you just want to play around with vRNI, both of these instances are the same. And it's also the same as I just showed you in the demo. So that data is also available in the HOL. So you can play around with it, do searches, look at the SD-WAN, look at the Kubernetes, which I haven't even talked about, the Kubernetes integration, look at every single part of vRNI and just play around with it. So the HOL is a very good resource for that. And also for VMworld, we're releasing a new one. So that's another reason to go to VMworld. Stefan, off topic question. In the vRNI event settings, system events and platform health events are populated. However, user-defined events is blank. Is there a configuration setting that must be turned on to get that list populated? Okay, it's not an off-topic question, Stefan. So system-defined events and also platform health events, those are out of the box. So those check NSX health best practice configurations. They check whether a load balancer is acting okay. Those are out of the box. I think there are around 250 events that we've got so far. Those are best practice checks that vRNI just starts doing for you when you turn it on. User-defined events are anything that you want to do, what you want to check. So, and I do realize that I did not show it, so I do have still the demo environment open, so I can quickly do that. So, for example, if I type in flow where country is, let's pick Afghanistan because it's let's pick China then, because I know that there are some flows there. So, if you type this in, you get results. If you want to get a user-defined, if you want to get a notification whenever these results change, so when there's a new flow coming from China or going to China, or anything at all, right? I mean, you can search for security groups, you can search for security firewall rule changes. When you want to get a notification of any change, you can just create this user-defined event. You can give it a name, you can say that you want to have email coming after it or an SNP trap. And then that becomes a user-defined event. So that's the reason why that list is empty, because you have not defined any of these yet. But I would highly encourage you to look into that, because any type of search, you'll be able to get a notification from it. So anything that we don't do out of the box. There we go. All right, and that's it for the Q&A. Oh. That just leaves me with, thank you very much for your time. And I actually cannot believe that I'm so good on time here. Just 1 minute.
Well planned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, this was really great content, both you, Martijn, and Abhijit. Thank you. You know, I love the hands-on labs. Let me run with that question a tiny bit more and just add on the fact that, you know, you mentioned, Martijn, that you know, there's a couple different labs, but it's all the same platform. Folks can go to docs.hol.vmware.com, and you can access all the lab manuals that way. So, you know, over on the side window, you open up the documentation, you open up the lab manual, and you can have it, you could jump between a couple different lab manuals without having to spin up new or different labs just to get to it. So a lot of people don't know that you can go straight to docs.hol.vmware.com and get to those lab manuals directly. Thank you again for the presentation. It was really, really interesting. I think all of us learned a lot from this. I want to encourage everyone to please join us again next month, where we'll be discussing virtualizing your business critical applications. And as Martijn mentioned, be sure to get scheduled for VMworld. He gave you some great tips on schedules or on sessions to look for. And also VMware TAM Customer Day. So that's a day dedicated to you folks specifically, where you've got top level executives and leadership just sharing a little bit tighter a vision for what's going on. If you've already registered, you know that you have to sign a different NDA just because there's extra value in the content that they're providing to you. So it's a different day depending on which region of the world you're in, but it's the week after VMworld. So if you're not already familiar with TAM Customer Day, be sure and talk to your TAM about that, and they can help you get registered for that. And with that, we'll close. Look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.